SportsInferno.com presents ZRadio with Mike Ackerman. I'm Corey Schrader. And we've got a big game tomorrow for the Hawkeyes. I want to talk about a bit about the Super Bowl. But the first thing I want to talk about, Mike, is this Cuban kid that is drawing a lot of interest from eligible teams that can sign this guy. Okay? He's 16 years old. He goes by the name of Lazaro Armenteros, but he wants to be referred to as Lazarito.
Yeah, he's like Adele. Or Madonna. He's got one name.
So here it is. If look up, people out there, Google this guy, Lazaro Armenteros. Okay, he's 16. If you look at him, he looks like Jorge Soler.
Oh, he does not look 16.
Right. He looks like he could be about 23, 24, around there. Okay? But here's my problem. And, you know, I don't mind players that showboat or have a cockiness to them. But I believe it has to be earned. Like Cam Newton, for instance. Okay? The guy has earned to showboat and do his dance and do all whatever he needs to do as Superman. That doesn't bother me.
Right.
Have fun. He's having fun. I don't care. He's earned it. But here's this guy from Cuba, hasn't played a lick in the majors, and we all know as Major League Baseball fans, if you get into the major league, you get humbled pretty quick. I don't care who you are. And I know this kid is supposed to be this phenom, and I understand he probably does have the talent, and he could probably be a stud. But if I'm coming to a team and I start demanding people to call me Lazarito as a first-name basis, if I'm a veteran in the league, I'm looking at that going, you got to be kidding me.
Oh, I agree. That to me, that should be a hint and a half that the kid could be problems. I mean, look at the issues that Yasiel Puig has had. Look at the problem. Look how long it took for Cespedes to sign. Some of these guys come here because, and I don't blame them, to be quite honest. They came from Cuba's such a downtrodden environment where all they do is play baseball well, and they come here and they live the free life. And I'm not saying that's all of them, but look at Aroldis Chapman. There was a concern with Aroldis Chapman going to the Dodgers because apparently Puig and Chapman were on the same All-Star team a couple years ago, and they kind of took over the locker room. Just two guys. Just loud and boisterous and everything else. And now you got a 16-year-old who wants to act that way? I mean, he better be damn good, and he better have a really good mentor assigned to him in the minor leagues if he's going to act that way.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing that bugs me. I mean, you look at okay, I brought up Cam Newton, so I'll bring up the other half, Johnny Manziel. The guy's a showboating, partying dude. He hasn't proved anything in the NFL. Zero, zilch, nothing.
Right.
And he is in that category of shut your mouth, learn the game, work on what you need to work on to be better as a professional athlete, and then do your, money thing and, I'm trying to be this young Brett Favre type, You haven't earned it.
No.
And I see people getting on Cam Newton and saying, this guy, I hate showboaters, I hate that. He's earned it.
Absolutely.
He's earned it. This year, you could say he's probably the best. Well, he's the MVP. He should be the MVP this year.
Oh, he should be.
So he's earned it. And he's not, out there saying, call me Camarito.
No.
he's Cam Newton. He's a guy who loves to play the game of football, and obviously he works on his game because each year he has been in the league, he has improved. And so, and this guy just sounds like he's going to be a stud, and you look at him and he fits the part, but the Cubs are one of the teams that might be involved with it, and I'm thinking to myself, I might want to just stay away from this guy because of the Puigs and the Chapmans and even Sammy Sosa, who didn't have a flare until that home run season. And I don't know. And you look at the Cubs locker room, and they're just loosey-goosey. The bunch of guys that have fun, play pranks on each other. You don't hear stories about Soler being a disruption. And even Soler, he kind of came out, but he came out differently. He came out more with, it's just me against everybody else, and he had that anger, and luckily he's toned that down, but I don't know if I want the Cubs to sign a 16-year-old Lazarito.
No, and the thing is, too, when you sign a 16-year-old, I mean, unless it's Bryce Harper, you're looking at 5-6 years before they're going to help you. So you hope somebody grows up. But the problem is when you have a 15-year-old or a 16-year-old acting that way, gosh, who's taught him to be humble, and will that get better or worse with time?
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, okay, he spends time in the minor leagues, and if this guy's a stud, and maybe he does come up at the age of 18, 19, is he going to be mature enough in 2 years in the minor leagues? I don't know if you want that headache, because especially with the Cubs, who's trying to form a Cub way, so to speak,
right.
From
right.
bottom on up. Everybody follows the same thing. Even that type of disruption could hurt your Cubs way, because it doesn't matter what any level you're at, the disruption is there. So
yeah,
I don't know if I want this guy.
Me personally, I wouldn't do it just because of everything you just outlined. It's a lot of money to spend on somebody who is going to possibly be a disrupting force. And I don't worry about him being a disrupting force in the major leagues. I worry about him with the young guys that you got in the last couple of years, and then the people in the future, a Gleyber Torres type or whoever it may be. The Cubs got a couple of good free agents from the international pool last summer. I worry about him being mixed in with those guys. I don't worry about Anthony Rizzo and Chris Bryant and that group, because I think he'd get to the majors and they would shut that up in a hurry. But you don't want him tainting everybody else in the system, because they're going to have to come up at some point in time.
Well, yeah. I mean, you just don't need the additional headache. Now, on the good side, and I know we really haven't touched base because, of course, the Hawkeyes have been impressing left and right. But I like the signing of that Nori Kawasaki guy. Dude, I went on YouTube and watched his interviews that he did while he was with Toronto, and he just seems like he would fit in perfect. He's your new Jonathan Herrera if he makes the Major League Ball club.
Right.
Now, he was invited on a minor league deal, just like Jonathan was. And if he makes it, he makes it. If he doesn't, he doesn't. But I would rather have that. Now, if the Cubs were poor and didn't have any talent, then maybe I would take the risk of Lazarito. But with Kawasaki, I think he'd fit fine with the goofballs the Cubs already have.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I think the Cubs will try and give Alcantara the first crack at anything they do, just because he's a switch hitter. He's got a little pop. He can play multiple positions. He's got speed. But man, he fell far, far, far from the plans of the Cubs last year. I mean, he didn't get a look. He didn't even get a look after he got done, or after his AAA season got done. So I don't know. I know he's playing in Winter League ball right now to average-ish type results. But I wouldn't be surprised if they want to give him the first run at anything, and then go from there. But if he doesn't make it, I mean, that guy certainly can step in and give it a whirl.
Well, yeah, I think Alcantara will get first spot, to make the team. He became the forgotten one once the Cubs got Addison Russell, and then they were looking for more of a veteran type infield depth. Herrera, he had been around the block a little bit more than Alcantara, and he just helped as far as veteran wise. If you needed to put a veteran in there to step up defensively in case there were some lapses, stuff like that. But as we found out, Herrera, I mean, who did a good job. I mean, he was serviceable. He did what he was supposed to do. But I think you're right. Alcantara will get that first crack at it.
I think so. But the one thing that people probably forgot, and I know I did, is Alcantara got the crack last year. I mean, he started opening day, and he just was bad. I mean, he was just bad at baseball last year for some reason. And the thing that I think was most disappointing to fans and most importantly the Cubs organization is he had quite a bit of pop the year before, and he would jump on fastballs. Well, last year he was missing fastballs and he didn't have hardly any pop for some reason.
Yeah, he was kind of like, he wasn't like the studs that the Cubs, like the Bryant, the Schwarbers, the Solairs, he was kind of serviceable at the time, and I don't know, it almost looked like he put too much pressure on himself. And that, I think that affected him more than anything. And hopefully he got his confidence back, and hopefully with Zobrist in there, you could just tell him, hey, just go out there, play your game. And maybe he does develop into something worthy. I don't know if he's going to be a starter at the major league level, but he could get a long career ahead of him,
yeah, especially because he can play multiple positions. He
Right.
He did have a little bit of pop, and he can run.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so he could be a part of someone's Cubs, whatever. I don't see him being like a Phillips in Cincinnati or wherever he's at, Nationals now, maybe. I don't know. Where he's the second baseman and he's got all, I don't see it, but he does have the talent to be that. But I think he has also the talent to even stick around and be that bench player that comes out and part of a 25-man roster.
Yeah, he definitely has it. I mean, I think the Cubs have so many options, and we really haven't even talked about it that much since the winter break. But they got Hayward. They got Zobrist. I'm not a fan of them, and I know we've talked about it minimally. I'm not a fan of them right now trading Soler or Baez.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just not that big of a fan right now, unless you're blown away with some sort of deal. Now,
Unless it's a huge steal, like Addison Russell was a steal.
yes,
I mean, that was just flat out.
that was highway robbery.
And everybody was confused as to.
Well, plus you got Billy McKinney on the deal too.
Right. Everybody was confused. What the heck was Oakland doing?
They were going for the championship. They were going for the World Series.
They were. He tried it. He tried his hand at what a lot of teams are doing, and totally did not work out for him. But I don't see that happening. And I don't want to get rid of Baez or Soler.
Not yet, because you just don't know.
Right.
They could both end up being perennial all-stars.
Right.
And I think once you start trading them, you start getting rid of the depth that makes you so dangerous. You look at, what happens if you trade Baez and then Edson Russell gets hurt.
Right. I mean, how good is... And that worked out in the playoffs.
Exactly.
When Russell did get hurt and Baez had to come in. And it felt like, a lot of people were like, oh my gosh, including myself, because Addison Russell is so good, but just because you hate to see a player like that get hurt. But we all knew as Cub fans, well, his backup is Baez.
Right.
So, you're going to stay, pretty much level on the defensive side, but you're going to get that much more pop at the plate. So it was kind of like, oh, okay, well, that just it didn't hurt, it didn't sting, and I don't want to lose that
he
thing.
He hits a 3-run bomb to win the NLDS game decider for him.
Well, yeah, he hit it off of Lackey, and that was the hit that Lackey fell apart within that game. He got frustrated, but Lackey, the old man Lackey, was pitching after what, 2 days, 3 days rest, 2 days rest, whatever it was. So, but that's what you needed, and I don't want to get rid of that. No way. I mean, you look at that, and you look at just signing Lackey helps your pitching staff a lot from last year. You have 3 top-of-the-line guys right now, and, your 4 or 5. I mean, Hamill fell off after the All-Star break, but who's to say? Maybe he has a bounce-back year and has what he had, puts a full season together.
Well, I think that's been the problem with Hamill the last 2 seasons, to be quite honest, is he's only put together half seasons both years. He had a great half season 2 years ago, and then he had a great half season last year, but at Oakland he didn't do nearly as well, and then with the Cubs last year didn't do nearly as well. So he's got to put 2 halves together. Now, the other concern, though, that I have is there's no way that Jake Arrieta is going to repeat what he did last year. He's just not. I mean, we can hope it. And he could even win the Cy Young again, Corey. He could win the Cy Young again and still not repeat what he did last year. That's a once in a lifetime season as far as I'm concerned.
No, but I think what Jake Arrieta did last year was allowed the young Cubs to go through their growing pains. Mm-hmm. So the Cubs, Jake Arrieta's pitching. We only need to score 1 run. So it didn't exploit the younger guys as much, and I think it helped. And of course, he's not going to have a season like that again. That was like, I mean, he was breaking records from.
Yeah, he was unbeatable until he got to the playoffs.
Right, and even he said, "Look, I was a little nervous during the playoffs, and but he's got that under his belt now." And he's got confidence, and he'll be. I think he'll be a good pitcher again. I have no doubt, but I'm not expecting 1908 records to be broken, and people bringing up 3-fingered Brown. This hasn't been done since the modern day, or this hasn't been. We're not going to hear that type of stuff. But
here's the thing that I would like to see. I would love to see Arrieta, Lester, and Lackey. If those 3, if Arrieta and Lester can be at right around a 3 ERA, and then you have Lackey between 3.5, and then say Hamill and Hendricks between a 3.75 and 4.25, then I think they're fine.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think the Cubs pitching will be fine. I think Lackey will be fine. I think there's more of a stability now at the front end of the rotation, and it's built for the playoffs. And and hopefully this year, the young guys are they got that year under their belt, okay, and I think the offense numbers should increase, and it should be an exciting season. I mean, obviously they're the favorites right now, which is, this is the first time where you could sit there and look at the Cubs and they say that they're the favorites and you can actually believe it.
Well,
whereas,
it's funny. I wrote an article today that we have up, and it talked about the, hey, we've hit the. I don't know about about you, but they talk about the dog days of summer. Well, I think we've hit the dog days of winter, and I'm at that point where I get the winter blues, and I'm definitely at that point now, just because we haven't had really warm days in a while. We've had days where it's not been quite as cold, but we haven't had too many days up in the 40s or near 50. It sounds like we may get there this weekend, but I'm definitely a summer guy. But the nice part about it this year, and I don't want to get off the Cubs, but the nice part about it this year so far has been that we've got, obviously the football team did so well. Both Iowa and Iowa State's basketball teams are doing well. And for the first time in, like you say, and the first time in forever, or a long time anyway, the Cubs are the odds-on favorite to win. The Cubs are the odds-on favorite to win the World Series. And the funny part is because you know this as well as anybody. I'm a pessimist at heart, and part of me thinks
no. You're a Debbie Downer. Debbie Downer.
I'm a pessimist at heart. But part of me is like, obviously I want the warm weather, but the other part of me is like, man, really, the expectation is World Series or nothing. I mean, there's nothing that the Cubs can do, to be quite honest, if they don't win the World Series that'll be looked at as a successful season. And you start to think about that, and it's great, and that expectation is great. But this is almost just as exciting. It's almost like you're going on a vacation, and sometimes the build up to the vacation is better than the actual vacation. And I feel like that a little bit right now with this Cubs season.
Oh yeah, I'm the same way. I mean, when you before you go on that vacation, you're thinking about it, and it's always funny because when I'm about done with the vacation, I always think, man, let me go back to like a couple weeks before the vacation started, because you're so excited, and yeah, that could be with the Cubs, but it's been kind of nice to sit there and say, the Cubs were so good, and while the Cubs were good, the Hawkeyes were starting something really good, and it helped ease the pain of the Bears, but at the same time, you looked at the Bears, and the Bears were better than what we thought they would be in terms of player development. And then all of a sudden, the basketball team is top 5. I mean, you got your football team's top 5, your basketball team's top 5. The Cubs were 4 games from the World Series. You saw some of the draft picks the Bears had develop into something positive, and now all of a sudden that leads up to this baseball season where you're like, World Series or bust.
Yeah.
And honestly, this was supposed to be the year where they contended.
This was supposed to be last year.
You're right. So
really, this was supposed to be the year that they were going to get about 90 wins and get to that wild card spot. Whereas last year, 97, 97 wins came out of nowhere. I mean, nobody expected that. And the
No.
funny part is the Cubs won 97 games last year, and they've got the highest zip projections out there, the highest FanGraph projections out there. They're projected to have the best record in not only the National League but all of baseball, but they're still not projected to win 97 games.
Right. Well, and then you got, and beyond that, if you just look at the human element, you are starting to see Cardinal fans kind of crawl back a little bit into their cave. They're not as cocky, and I think they're starting to realize, yeah, okay, the Cubs have built something here. They're young, and they're going to be young for a while. None of these young studs are close to their prime, and they're playing like they're in their prime. And it's a good feeling. It's a good feeling, and I'm just trying to enjoy the moment, not only with the Hawkeye football team, and I'm trying to enjoy the moment with this basketball team. I'm trying not to look at the schedule and say, oh gosh, this could be this, or, of course I do my calculations in my head, but I try not to dwell on it. They seem different, and I'm kind of anxious to see what the Bears are going to draft, who they're going to go after. So, yeah, I mean, it is exciting. It's time to enjoy it, really, if you're a fan of those teams.
Yes, I just want some nice weather to enjoy it in.
Yeah, this weather is getting old. And then did you hear about they're keeping an eye on a system on Tuesday?
Oh, jeez.
They're talking it could be a snow event, a big snow event somewhere in Iowa, but just be aware of it. So I'm hoping it's like Northwest Iowa,
far away from here.
Yeah, I look outside and the snow is trying to melt, and it's supposed to get in the mid-40s this weekend, and hopefully that'll melt a lot of it. And let's just be done. Let's just get warm weather.
Yes. So here's my question, because I was reading a little bit earlier. For the Cubs right now, who bats leadoff? Because Hayward is not a big fan of batting leadoff.
Well, last I read, he said he'll bat wherever.
He said that, and of course he said that to the public, but in private, he's not a big fan of batting leadoff. His statistics aren't nearly as good when he bats leadoff.
Well, then, I mean, if that's the case, if he feels that uncomfortable, and Madden, you know how Madden's going to put anyone in their most comfortable position, so he'll listen to that. You're probably at this point looking at Russell.
You know what's funny is this same article. It was by Buster Olney at ESPN. After looking at numbers, he said an option that he may use is against right-handers, Schwarber hits leadoff, and against left-handers, Zobrist hits leadoff.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see that. But here's the thing about Madden's lineups is every other day it seemed like you'd see Schwarber at the 2 spot, and then he'd drop down to the 7th, and you'd see Rizzo up to 2, and he drops, and Bryant, and everybody's going all over the place. The only constant was Dexter Fowler. But I could see that.
Yeah, they obviously don't have a prototypical leadoff guy. Probably if his OBP was a 340 OBP, you could probably look at Baez, because I think he's probably their fastest player. But I don't see anybody else as that prototypical leadoff guy.
I forgot about Zobrist. I could see him playing a lot of leadoff there, because he's a high on base guy.
Yeah.
And you just let the numbers dictate and put Russell where, if Madden still bats the pitcher in the 8 spot, then you still put Russell at the 9 hole and fill out the lineup from there. I mean, I'm assuming he wants to figure out the bookends and fill out the middle how it may shake out.
Well, I after it started going, I kind of liked Russell in the 9-hole. I doubted at first because I've always been somebody that said I want my better hitters as high up in the order as you can because they're going to get more bats. But I thought in this case, there's not that much of a difference between 8 and 9, the number of bats you're going to get, and it's going to get your 2-hole hitter a lot more RBI chances with him there. There were times when the 8 hitter would come up and you go, oh shoot, it's the 8 hitter and not, or it's the pitcher and not whoever else. But then there were also a lot of times that they came, or that the 9 hitter, then, there was no rally, whatever it was. The 9 hitter came up and it was Russell or whoever it may have been, and they ended up having they ended up getting on, and then all of a sudden you got the top of the order coming up. Which, imagine now with a righty, you got Russell who hits 9th, and all of a sudden you're going to have, with a righty up, you're going to have to deal with Russell on first, or who's at first base or wherever, Schwarber, Hayward, Bryant, and Schwarber, Hayward, Bryant,
Soler,
Rizzo, then Soler, and then Zobrist, and then Montero.
It's
they're going to score. I don't know what the record for Cubs runs scored in a season is, but they're going to come damn close to it this year.
I mean, picture yourself a fan of another team. Let's say you're a fan of the Pirates, and you're looking at your pitching staff, and you look at the Cubs and you say, my goodness. I mean, there is no let-up in that lineup. None.
Right. No, I agree. And that's not including Javier Baez.
Right. Right. So Russell or Zobrist or someone, Schwarber or Hayward, Soler, any of those guys need a rest. Okay, here's Baez. Oh yeah, by the way, this winter we worked him out in center field, and he can play outfield spots now. So here comes Baez.
Right.
And maybe maybe Baez then takes over Zobrist after his contract's up.
Right.
So that's a heck of a line. That's just a crazy lineup, man.
Oh, it's insane.
I if I'm another team's fan, I'm looking at it, and I think that's where the Cardinal fans come in, because I think they finally realized, and I think after they got beat by the Cubs, I think they realized, holy cow, there was no break. What could we do? It was like, here comes Schwarber, and he's hitting these monster shots, and then Soler, and all of a sudden, Baez hits this 3-run shot, and it's like, okay, we're trying to concentrate on Rizzo and Bryant, but all of a sudden, these studs are coming through, and Schwarber just, God, just watching him hit. It almost became in the playoffs, we're like, yep, okay, every time he's up to bat, he's going to go yard. Good luck, and you got to walk him.
I was reading something not too long ago, and it talked about Schwarber, and they think he's going to have this article said he swings and misses too much, and basically he's going to have a bad batting average. Like they made it sound like he was going to have like a 230 batting average, and I don't think that's going to be the case. I don't think he's going to hit 300 or anything like that. But I do think that he's going to hit 250-ish.
He could. I find him. I think better. I think he'd be better than 250. To be honest with you,
it'll be interesting because that everybody's going to look in the off season, and basically everybody went up and in on him to try and get him out. Obviously, everybody knows stay away. Don't even think about going away. If you're going to go away, you better go way off the plate away. The only way to get him out is up and in and a breaking ball low and in. Other than that, he's going to hit it, and he's going to hit it on top of a scoreboard.
Right. But he also started to hit opposite field as well too. So going away. I mean, the playoffs. I mean, he just went nuts. I mean, if you look at the old basic stats, I mean, batting average against Pittsburgh, of course, that's just one game. But I mean, he batted 500 against St. Louis.
Right.
He struggled against the Mets, but who didn't?
Right.
I mean, look at their staff. But he still got 2 home runs. I mean, he had 5 home runs in the postseason.
So really, I think it comes down to the big question marks going into the season are going to be, who is it going to be a behind the top 3 in the Cubs pitching order? Is it going to be a open competition with Hendricks, Hamill, Warren, and his name's escaping me. The guy who had the Dodger socks on for the Cubs in the playoffs.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Is it going to be a open competition? Well, that's not what I wanted. Let's see, where is he?
Well, Cahill, Wood. Cahill was the one you were talking about.
Yeah, Trevor Cahill. Is it going to be an open competition for those last couple spots? Or is it going to be, hey, here's your 5, but we're going to stretch out Warren, Cahill, and Wood to be ready if they need to in case these guys either get hurt or falter. So I think that's one question. The other question is who's going to bat leadoff. And then I think the other question is, are they going to use Javier Baez in that super utility role and basically give him 4 to 5 games a week in 4 to 5 different positions?
Yeah, I think Baez is perfect for that right now.
I mean, you look at it; he can play shortstop, and there's been quite a few things that I've read that have said, "Hey, Addison Russell is like the Tim Duncan, for shortstop. I mean, he just does everything right. He gets in the right position. He does everything he's supposed to do. But the player with the better range and the better arm and the better instincts is Javier Baez. So they said he's probably the best infielder he would be the best infielder in the Cubs at shortstop, second, and third base.
It wouldn't shock me. It doesn't shock me at all.
So I think that you look at it, he can play, any one of those 3 positions. And then he can play probably in the outfield position. So he can play 6 positions. And if you play 4 of them a week, and then you got a 6-game week, and on Monday you want to give Zobrist a day off at second. On Tuesday you want to give Russell a day off at shortstop. On Wednesday you want to give, or then let's say Wednesday you stay pat. On Thursday you give Bryant a day off at third, and then Saturday you give whoever's in center field the day off in center, and all of a sudden he's now got 4. He's got 4 games under his belt in 1 week.
Well, yeah, I mean that's the good thing about the Cubs right now, and that's why I don't want to. I'm not for looking to trade anyone right now. I think right now, I mean, if you look at it, I'm comfortable to start the season right now with what they have, and let's see how it plays out. We know the talent is there to win the NL Central. The talent is there to win the World Series, for that matter. Let's see. I'm in no hurry to deal unless something ridiculous comes down the pipeline, like we said. But I'm not ready to deal any of those guys.
No, I'm not. And then when you take a look at the other side and you think, okay, the Cardinals. I mean, the Cardinals lost their best pitcher at the end of the year and their best position player to their rival, and they replaced him with Mike Leake. I mean, if I'm reading it, if I remember everything, that's basically all they got.
Well, and I thought it was funny that, when they lost those guys and you see the Cardinal fan, we didn't need them anyways. We didn't need them. They're not true Cardinals. Well, here's Hayward who came up young into the Braves system, and he gets traded because his contract is coming up. So he goes to the Cardinals for 1 year. And gee, St. Louis, maybe people don't enjoy your town. Hell, your football team left to go back to its original city. You couldn't even keep that. So maybe, just maybe, you're not as liked as you think. You could sit there and talk about your Cardinal way, and no one's denying how successful they've been.
Oh, I'm jealous of how successful they've been. I can tell you that.
I'm not going to take that away from them. But when the Cubs haven't had a plan, and when the Cubs haven't had the opportunity to develop a solid Major League Baseball team, and when you finally do, more people are going to like Chicago Cubs over St. Louis Cardinals. And that has a lot to do, too, with the community itself. There is endless things to do in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
There are possibilities to do things in St. Louis.
I found downtown St. Louis boring.
I call it actually a bigger Quad Cities. Now, just because the downtown is boring, but you go downtown Chicago, you got pockets everywhere. Oh, let's go here. Well, let's go to Michigan Avenue. We've got a mile of stuff to do. Oh, there's Rush Street. Let's go down to Rush Street. Oh, there's that food area where it's like one big neighborhood food court. Let's go to Navy. I mean, there's so much things to do down there. And I think players find that attractive, especially players that are going to have a lot of money in their wallet. And the fact you're playing at Wrigley Field, and the fact, especially now, you're playing for a team that hasn't won anything. Look what the Bears are doing right now. This 30 years later. And I'm sick of the 85 Bears. It's almost becoming the frickin' Miami Dolphins, the 72 Dolphins, where I'm just like, okay, I'm ready for a new group of people. Well, the Cubs, if you win the World Series, they're built for multiple World Series, put it that way. But if you win in Chicago, you punched your ticket.
Well, and I think that was the selling point for both Lackey and Hayward. I mean, from the sounds of it, it's not like the Cubs had to sell a whole lot, because everybody knows, man, you win there, that's it. You're set for life.
Well, yeah, and look at Lackey. Lackey said, "Well, yeah, I've got a couple of buddies on the team."
Mm-hmm.
I got a couple buddies on the team. They got talent. Obviously, I saw it firsthand. They beat me. Okay, I'd like to join that. And then you look at Hayward, and you look at his reasons. I like the city. I like the fact that these young players that the Cubs are bringing up are my age. And I want to be a part of a group of people that are around my age, and we create something successful. And he says, I'm not coming here to be the stud. I'm coming here to add to the puzzle.
Right.
I'm just a piece. And he looked, and he was honest. He looked at St. Louis, and he says, look, they've got a couple young guys there, Piscotty and
Piscotty and Grichuk.
Yeah. So, but other than that, yeah, they are getting older. Wainwright's getting older.
Well,
Molina's getting older.
Here's the other thing too, because I was actually just looking those two up, Grichuk and Piscotty, and a lot of the Cardinals' success for this upcoming season is really being left at their being left on their doorstep because they had decent years last year. I'm a firm believer in you play to what your averages are, and neither of them had enough time last year to really prove that they played well. And I don't want anybody to think that I'm taking that away from them. But when you start looking at Randall Grichuk's stats throughout the years, since 2011. In 2011, he hit okay in Arizona League when he'd already, which is rookie ball. He must have been hurt. But in full season ball, in 122 bats at Midland, a full season, he only hit 230. It looks like they sent him down then. And then in 2012, he was in A Advanced. He hit 298. Not bad. But he only had 9 home runs. In 2013, he hit just 8 home runs, and he hit 256 at Double A. In 2014, he hit just 2 home runs in 108 games. Is that right? 2 home runs? Yeah, just 2 home runs in 108 games. And then he went up to the majors for a bit. Then hit 3 home runs actually in the majors. Or no, just 1 home run in the majors. And then last year he hit, 17. You know what? I apologize. I was looking at the wrong category. He had 18, 22, and 25 home runs in the minors. So he did have home run. I mean, he's got home run power, but the thing that the Cardinals have won on over the years is having such good OBP teams, and he's not an on-base percentage guy. His highest on-base percentage since he started playing full ball in let's go since 2011. He was a 335 in A ball, and then he was 329 last year, which isn't bad, but 329 OBP with 17 home runs. And let's not also forget, too, last year he struck out, where is it? He struck out 110 times in just 323 at-bats. That's 33% of the time.
Well, yeah, if you look at the Cardinals and you look at the stats, I think probably your best player coming back would be Tommy Pham. Far if you want to look at OBP, look, the Cardinals won 100 games last year. They're not going to win 100 games this year.
No,
they're going to be solid. But I mean, if you look at the main players in there, John Jay. Oh, is he John Jay?
He's gone. Yeah, he was traded.
So
he's San Diego.
That's right. So he's gone. But you have Fat Adams, he's 26, but he was hurt.
Coming off injury.
Right. Cosma was nothing. Brandon Moss, he filled in all right. But it's going to come down to Grichuk and Piscotty.
Well, and Piscotty, here's the reason I think you can look at some of the Cubs young guys, the Bryants, and because I don't want it to seem like I'm being a hypocrite, with the Cubs young guys haven't proven themselves at the major league level. Like Russell, like Schwarber, like Bryant, like Soler. The difference is, except for maybe Soler at this point in time, they proved themselves really, really well at the minor league level. Piscotty, his career high in home runs was 15. He hit 15 home runs in 2 different levels in 2013.
Well, I think everybody, and I remember this last year, people were like, wow, where did the power come from? There's a lot of questions where Piscotty developed this power. I don't think he keeps it up.
And I think that if I was a Cardinal executive and now being a Cardinal, and if I was a Cardinal fan, I would be concerned that you're looking at your two major players that you're counting on this year are those guys, and they really haven't proven themselves. And I'm going back to their minor league days to be guys that can do it over the long haul of a major league season.
Well,
they haven't proven themselves. That's just, it's just the way it is.
Well, and that's where I think the anger comes in, about Hayward leaving.
Yeah.
He was such a big part. He kind of molded their lineup better. They don't have that guy that can mold their lineup. You knew that with Hayward, you could put him 3, 4, whatever, 2. He helped your lineup. He's no longer there. There's not that solid guy that can help your lineup. Now he's an addition to the Cubs. I think what ticks him off is he's more of an addition. Now, a very good addition to the Cubs. We don't need him as much as the Cardinals needed him.
I agree.
That way. And I think that's where the anger came from.
I agree. I'm looking at their lineup now. And again, this is a lineup that struggled to score last year. And now you're going to add in, and now you're taking away your most consistent player anyways. They were like all-time bad last year, and the funny part is the year before they were all-time good, but they hit just a ridiculous amount with runners in scoring position. I want to say they were like 330 with runners in scoring position. Well, they didn't get that last year, and the year before it kind of maybe covered up a couple of inadequacies they had that they couldn't cover up last year.
Their offense was not very good last year. I remember their pitching is what got them through, and their offense picked up in the playoffs, but their pitching let them down.
Yeah,
and you can, and as Cub fans, I'm used to that. I'm used to where a certain segment of the team is positive where the other one just drops off when you're expecting vice versa. And I think the Cardinals are starting to enter that type of territory, especially with all those injuries to the pitching staff.
Well, you start looking at their lineup, and really the one guy that you look at and go, shoot, he's the guy that you got to worry about is Matt Carpenter.
Mm-hmm.
He's the one guy that when he comes up to the plate, you go, uh-oh. Because other than that, Grichuk had 17 home runs in just 323 plate appearances, but he had 17 home runs. So that's a 30 home run season if you put 600 at bats up there. But he couldn't stay healthy. And again, I question whether he can do that over a full season because he proved in the minor league there was nothing that said he put nothing up in the minor leagues that says I'm that good of a full season player. Johnny Peralta had a really strong first half of the season, and if I remember correctly, he was an all-star. But the second half, he really, really fell hard.
And he's going to be 34.
Yeah.
And Matt Holiday's going to be 36.
Yeah,
Matt Carpenter's going to be 30. I mean, these are old. This is an old. A team getting old.
Yeah. Yeah, so I just don't see. Now, the one thing they do get back, and this kind of also takes away some of the sting of losing Lackey, is they get Wainwright back. I mean, if Wainwright's healthy, which he's had trouble staying healthy for full seasons because he's also getting up there in age, if he stays healthy and pitches to his potential, that's basically like getting, like Lackey's loss doesn't mean as much to him. As opposed to adding to, if Lackey would have re-signed there, it just doesn't add to it nearly as much. Or it doesn't add to it at all, really. It's just it's status quo.
The Cardinals are younger on the pitching side of things. Garcia 28, Lynn 28, but they're hurt.
Well, is Lynn out for the season?
I'm thinking so.
Yeah, Lance Lynn's out for the season.
So, but you got, but I don't know. The Cardinals are going to struggle this year.
I think they're going to be a 85 to 88 team win. Or
Right.
8-win team, I should say.
And that's a struggle.
For them, yeah.
For them. Right.
Yeah, for them, yeah. I mean, I'd love to be at that spot where 85 to 88 wins is a struggle. Yeah, Lance Lynn had Tommy John surgery at the end of the season. So I would love that, but, for them, that's not going to be good enough. Again, all the respect in the world to them because they've set that high standard for themselves. But this year, I just don't see them keeping up. I mean, they're already making comments about, well, you don't win the World Series in January and blah, blah, blah. I mean, they're coming out and saying, yeah, they had a better offseason than us. And they were really, to be quite honest, after the first 2.5 months of the season, they were a better team than the Cardinals anyways.
Well, yeah. Well, yeah, if you looked at the second half, the Cubs won the division.
Oh, yeah. Easy.
The Pirates and the Cardinals fired off quick at the beginning of the year.
The one thing that I would maybe consider if I was the Cubs is you have Warren, Wood, Cahill, guys who could be stretched out, is maybe once a month giving each of the top 3 in particular
a break.
A day off. I mean, make it 10 days in between starts instead of 5 days in between, or make it 8 days in between starts, or whatever it is in between instead of 4. I mean, skip them once in the rotation, basically. And that depends on how the that depends just on how the season's going. I mean, if you feel like you can and still make the playoffs, and especially if you can win the division, I would do it.
Well,
if
there's a danger to that.
There is. The Cardinals tried to do it a little bit, and the pitchers came back and didn't pitch so well afterward. My only problem, though, is, or maybe you start them and treat it like a spring training game where they only go like 2 or 3 innings.
Because they are on rhythm. I mean,
Yeah.
You look at Arrieta, he was on rhythm, and it's a big thing, and I see where you're getting at because
Arrieta pitched a ton of innings last year.
Right. You don't want to wear them out.
Right.
I get it, but you also don't want to make it. And I always remember Waka just complaining about having that time off.
Oh yeah.
And affecting him. And he was right. It did affect him because ever since the extra rest, they have problems.
Yeah. You know what? It'll be interesting now that they have Lackey on the team. If Lackey will tell them, hey, it was a bad idea, or if Lackey will tell them, you know what, we just didn't pitch as well. That had nothing to do with it. Because I think Waka was a little bit of a crybaby, to be quite honest. But yeah, I if it's me, maybe instead of just skipping them completely, maybe you just let them go that 3 or 4 innings or something. But then maybe you do it a little more often. Because if you can if you do it once a month and you take 5 innings off of their pitching once a month, over 6 months, that's 30 innings. That gets you 3 extra games in the postseason. 4 extra games probably in the postseason.
Well, one thing I've learned though with Madden is just let him do his thing, because I remember talking last year about what the Cubs were going to do, this, that, and the next, and they just were all over the map, and it worked.
Yeah.
And I like that. I think the Cubs, obviously, I mean, as opposed to the Cardinals, they have a better manager.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, to go to the south side of town, the White Sox, and we had talked about this all going back into last season. What's their plan? What are they going to do going forward? Because it sure seemed like they were going nowhere quickly. And then they traded for Todd Frazier. And I think we had talked about it. We're going, okay, but I don't get it. I just don't get the signing because the guy, that's still a bad offensive team for the most part. And everybody agrees that their starting rotation is really strong. But what do you do with is their bullpen strong enough? One, and two, they just don't hit the ball well enough. Well, then the rumors were popping up that they were going to go after Cespedes, and then that didn't happen. So the White Sox, I think, are still stuck in that middle ground there of, I don't think they're going to be. I mean, they had a lot of ground to make up last year, or from last year to this year, and just getting Frazier doesn't do it.
No, personally, I think Frazier is the appeasement factor.
Oh, I think so too.
He's not. The Sox need a lot. They have poor drafts. Well, the last couple, I guess they've got a couple good ones, but their farm system isn't strong. They don't have the big market money that the Cubs, the Dodgers, the Yankees, the Red Sox have. And they have a bad fan base. Sorry. I know some Sox fans out there, and you can say all you want about the Cubs. Do whatever you want about the Cubs. But when you only have 10,000 people showing up, they don't have the money for it.
Well, I was actually listening to a Chicago radio station not too long ago, and they were talking and said something that I think we've said before, that when they built that stadium, they did it wrong in multiple ways. One, they did it they made a stadium that was the last of the cookie cutter stadiums.
Right.
They were the back end of a trend instead of leading the forefront of another trend, which, not surprising to me. But then
we talked about that too.
Yeah.
I mean, you and I have talked about how their stadium it's crap. It's I can't say it's crap, but I mean, the way it looks on the outside,
it doesn't have a lot of atmosphere. It looks like a cookie cutter, and they've done a lot of improvements to it over the years to try and make it so it's not that cookie cutter stadium. But they definitely missed the boat on it, on doing it the right way. And then the other aspect of it too was, and this is part of the reason you don't get people there on non-game day, or on when the team's not that good, because of where it's at. And White Sox fans always want to complain about Wrigley Field, and that it's people are just there for the stadium and nobody cares about the game, and some of that's true. But you know what? It's still fans going in the game. And you can't argue that. Yeah, and the problem was, and what they were saying on the radio is, back when the White Sox built this stadium, they were being offered some land in the River North area, just off of downtown, and kind of up. I think of River North. That's where the old Jordan restaurant is, or was. That's where the big sports store is. But that's where they had some land there. Well, there's nothing to do around White Sox Stadium. You go to the game and you leave.
Right.
And that's the opposite of what everybody else has done. Look at what San Diego did with their stadium when they built the Petco Park, or I don't even know what it's called now, but it used to be called Petco Park, I think. They've revitalized that entire area. Look what Baltimore did down there with their stadium. Look what the football team, the new Los Angeles Rams are doing where they're going in. I mean, they're revitalizing entire areas, and the White Sox picked an area that they didn't revitalize. I mean, again, they were here's the stadium and this is it, and I don't care about anything else. When they didn't have the forethought to look 15 years down the road and think, what do we need here to compete with everybody else?
Well, and Wrigley, but you also got to look at it. Wrigleyville's been Wrigleyville. There's always been stuff to do around that stadium. Now, of course, it's grown over the years, and maybe they looked at, well, if the Bears can, their stadium, people go there, and then they just leave.
It's 8 times
totally
a year.
Different. They're the only pro football team in the city.
Yeah, and it's 8 times a year as opposed to 81 times a year.
Right. So you can go to a Cubs game and you can tailgate pretty much. Tailgating by going to Murphy's or wherever you want over there around Wrigley Field. Then you can go check out the game. Mm-hmm. Okay? And then when you leave the game, then you can maybe you hung out at a bar prior to the game, went to the game, and then now you want to get something to eat. Well, they've got places right there that you can get something to eat. So it keeps you in that area. And then when you're done, before you know it, it's 2 o'clock in the morning because there's a lot to do.
Right.
And you're right.
And
with White Sox, you can't.
Right. So what you do is for the White Sox game, the game's at 1 o'clock, you get on the L, and you take it down to Comiskey, and you get off there about 12:45 or so. And then when you get done, you get on the L, and you go right back downtown. And if you want to hang out somewhere, you're going to do it downtown.
Right. And I think a lot of that appeal is, public transportation sucks.
Yeah.
It sucks. And if I'm going to take the L down to Wrigley Field, I at least know that I can get to Wrigley Field and I could spend all day and all night in that area. And then I can deal with the L later, and it won't be as crowded because people are coming and going at different times. Whereas the White Sox game is over, we're going straight to the L, and you've got 10,000 people all trying to hit the L.
Right.
And it becomes a cluster, and it becomes an inconvenience. And yeah, they didn't do it. They didn't do it right. And I don't. You know what? I don't care anymore. I've got teams that are losing left and right all my life. I do not feel sorry for you White Sox fans. I don't feel sorry for Cardinal fans. I don't feel sorry for Packer fans. I don't care. I don't care anymore. I don't care. Iowa State, you feel bad because this was supposed to be your year and the Hawkeyes are ranked number 3. I don't care. I'm sorry. Too bad. I don't care. That's my attitude. I don't care.
No, I agree. I mean, I feel bad because I know White Sox fans, but really, I still look at the White Sox and I think of the White Sox just like I think of Iowa State, their little brother.
Yeah, well, yeah, they are. They are, but you know what? They've got a World Series, the last 10 years. Cubs don't. At least they can be proud of that. So if you only get 10,000 fans, well, I'm sorry it's inconvenient, but I think for me as a baseball fan, if the Cubs were the White Sox and I was the Cub fan, I would still go to their games because I'm a Cub fan.
Right.
And yes, of course, what part of the Cubs draw is Wrigley Field, but it's not just Wrigley Field.
No.
It's the whole area. Of course, everyone wants to see the ivy and the marquee, and it does feel like you're, in how baseball is, like you're in a backyard type of thing, the atmosphere, but that's all part of it. That's always been part of it.
Right.
You look at the big outfield at Ebbets Field, that was part of it. That was part of the draw and the fans showing up to that. So baseball, you could sit there and say, well, cookie cutter. Yeah, it was cookie cutter, but there was also atmosphere to it. And when the White Sox built their cookie cutter, Camden Yards comes out, and then you're done.
Yep.
Oh, that just ended it. And I don't care what they call it, U.S. Cellular now. It's still Comiskey Park. It's still, I wish them luck. Two teams in Chicago, great. Great. Well, one thing I do want to switch gears here, if you don't mind.
No, go ahead.
I read an article that the owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars has kind of through back channels inquired about moving his team to Chicago.
Really?
Yeah, he was talking maybe some of the suburbs or something like that.
Here's the problem with, I think...
You got a fire at your house?
No, it's my phone. Is actually, for whatever reason, it's not charging. And it's every time it does that, it's like the charger comes undone. But yeah, I don't know why it's doing that. It's really annoying me. I don't know that would go over as well as what he thinks. And here's the reason why. Because everybody there is a Bears fan. It has been for such a long time. So let's say, hold on, I just saw an MLB rumors thing. Oh, that must be about the Cuban kid.
I'm sorry. I'm watching the Michigan Rutgers game.
I am too.
And did you see Dawkins going for this?
Oh, and you just missed it? I didn't until you just said something.
Sorry, I thought it was funny.
But the reason I don't think it would work as well as he thinks it would is because almost everybody there is a Bears fan. So to make it work effectively, you got to get half the market to switch over and be a Jaguars fan. And I don't think that at this point everybody's. I mean, it's the Bears.
Right.
It's one thing if he was going to Los Angeles and there's no loyalty there.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's the Bears. It would be like if if an NFL team went to Milwaukee. You know what I mean? I just don't. I don't think it wouldn't make me a fan. I would think of them as the Jaguars.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I just thought it was interesting angle to look at, and I think the NFL and kind of looked at him and was like, "That ain't gonna work, dude."
No, there's
it can't because you've got big dividing lines. You got the Packer fans that are up in starting in the Milwaukee, and there's a lot of Bears fans in the southern half of Wisconsin, but there's just it would be too crowded. It's too crowded, and it's too embedded because you're going into a region where the Lions, the Bears, the Packers. I mean, these are charter teams. I mean, the Bears and the Cardinals are the two original charter teams in the NFL, obviously, but with the Packers coming a year later and the Lions a couple years later, but you're going into lines. I mean, generations of fans.
right.
You know, LA. You're right. I mean, LA doesn't have generations of fans. Although I thought it was cool that, I mean, if I was living in LA, grew up in LA, and followed the Rams, I would be ecstatic that the Rams are coming back because that was the team I grew up watching, type of thing, you know?
Oh, absolutely. No, I agree, because I think what happened, well, you probably had a lot of Los Angeles fans stay there. I mean, you probably have a lot of Los Angeles fans that are already Los Angeles fans, and then you probably have fans that are, then you probably have, hold on one second.
QCSportsinferno.com presents Barkley.
Well, you know what's funny is I'm watching my parents' Newfoundland, and We've got our golden retriever, and I'm sorry, you must have been able to hear me from the mic on the computer. But then I've got our chocolate lab and our golden retriever, and the Newfoundland and the chocolate lab don't get along very well. Well, the Newfoundland's kind of fat and lazy, and the chocolate lab wants to play, and so he kind of annoys them. Well, I walked out of the room when you were talking a minute ago because my daughter had left. I wanted to open the door so they could run around the house a little bit, my two, because the Newfoundland was outside as I'm boring everybody. And then he's sitting there at the door, waiting or as I open it up. So I'm like, oh, shoot, I just don't want those two to get into it, and then I have to go break up a fight when I'm on here. So that's why I yelled. I actually unplugged from the mic. I didn't know the mic on the computer would work. It's kind of surprising to yell for Barkley to come here.
Yeah, we all heard it. Got our attention. So if anyone had a dog out there named Barkley, their ears perked up.
So,
but
yeah, I really think that if you're in, there's already got to be Ram fans out in Los Angeles. So I think it's probably good for them. And it won't change there. And it could be because, if you're a Los Angeles fan and you're a Arizona Cardinals fan, how many games are you getting to, this and that and the other thing? Are you a diehard? And
right.
you were going to get some, Tony Ogden, our friend Tony Ogden, he lives down in Kansas City and has for 10 to 15 years now. And, he's a Cubs fan and he's a Bears fan. But he's also now become a Royals fan and a Chiefs fan.
Well, I think if you were to move, you kind of adopt, the hometown team. I think for me, I don't, I just can't see myself because, I see myself in a warm state by a beach, and I don't see myself rooting for the Buccaneers. I don't see myself rooting for the Dolphins. I don't see myself rooting for the Jaguars. So I guess I would stay a Bears fan, but it's understandable. You have the transplants, but if I was an old L.A. Ram fan, I'm glad they're coming back instead of retreading Oakland coming down to L.A. I don't think that was big because if you look at it, I'm sure there's divisions just like Cubs and Sox. That would be almost like I'm a Rams fan, and here's the Oakland Raiders moving down to play in L.A., but we hate the people in Oakland because they're not L.A., they're Oakland people. We don't like them, but now we're forced with this Oakland team. That'd be like the White Sox moving to Wrigley Field. We'd be like, wait a minute, what are you trying to pull here? I don't know if I want to root for the frickin' White Sox. So I thought it was good that the Rams went back. I know a lot of people were kind of shocked with it because there was, I guess, some better land or whatnot. But I think it was the right move for L.A. And it was kind of cool to see some of those L.A. fans out there. You could tell there were some old Rams fans in the crowd, when they were celebrating. Good for them because, we've got a luxury. I mean, as Chicago fans, except for me and the Bulls, but I got a baseball team I'm a fan of a baseball team that's been around since 1880. I've got a football team that is a charter member of the NFL that I've been a fan of. None of these are expansion teams. I mean, these are rooted teams that, my parents like, my grandparents like, and family before them like. So, it's more generational, and there is no way I could see another NFL team coming to Chicago. You can't take that market. That's the only team that unites White Sox and Cubs fans. Them and the Bulls, But, I mean, I don't know. I just don't see it. And hey, I wanted to ask you, while we're talking about Chicago teams, I don't know if you saw one of my updates. I think it was last week or maybe over the weekend. Did you like how I put the Chicago Bulls lost to the Celtics, and I put the Celtics in all caps?
Yeah.
So you could see that when you logged in right away?
Yeah, obviously you didn't see the headlines the next day.
Well, it's called ignoring that part. I'm just bragging about my part right now.
Yeah. You obviously didn't see the next day because I put on there after the Bulls beat the Cavaliers. I said, I put Bulls beat Cavaliers, Celtics loss, obviously a fluke.
Yeah, I kind of recall seeing that, but I think I was like sleeping or ignoring that.
Oh yeah, I saw it and I responded in kind.
I almost put that whole background in green just to dig on you. And not the main page, but the Bulls page was going to be green.
Yeah, no, I saw it. It was funny. The Bulls are like talk about a Jekyll and Hyde team. I think that, and now they got Nikola Mirotic out until after the All-Star break with an appendectomy. I just think that they're not a team that's together. I think Derrick Rose is not a good. I mean, he's statistically one of the worst point guards in the league, and
I don't think he's a locker room guy either.
No, I don't think so either. I don't think he works hard. When you look at him, I'd like to know who's doing his physical training. And when I say he doesn't work hard, I mean I think he keeps himself in shape and all that stuff, which is really the bare minimum of what you should be doing. But he looks tight to me. I don't know if it's hard to explain, but he looks like he's a rubber band that's just stretched to its limits. He doesn't look like he has anything fluid about the way his body moves, and I don't mean just his knees. I mean everything about him. To me, it looks like he does his weight training and stuff, and he doesn't do any kind of flexibility training or anything. He just looks like he's super duper tight. I guess that's a good problem to have. I wish I had that problem as opposed to super duper fat. But he just doesn't look like he has anything fluid about any of his movements right now.
Do you think maybe that he's like that because of the injury history that he has, and he's kind of adopted a different style of working out due to rehabbing those injuries, and someone just probably needs to tell him, hey, you're a basketball player, not a football player.
Yeah.
You need more. It's more conditioning, and sure, you got to have both, but you got to have the conditioning and flexibility.
I mean, he looks like he needs to do. He looks like he needs to do Pilates or something. And I'm not even kidding. I mean, he looks like he just needs all that flexibility training because everything he do looks like it's a blocky movement. And I don't remember him being that way before. I mean, even his dribbling, the way he walks, everything just looks like he looks like a strong robot who's doing it, and there's nothing fluid about his game.
Maybe it's all in his head. He's scared to get injured, and in his head, he knows if he makes things stronger, the less likely those type of issues won't occur. But you would think that more stretching and flexible exercises would help it more. I'm thinking it's all in his head, and I'm thinking him and the Bulls need to get a fresh start somewhere else.
Oh, I don't disagree at all. The problem, if you're the Bulls, is I don't think you're going to get anything good for them. Because if you tried to trade, I mean, the only way you're going to get something good for him is if you traded him to a team that has two or three picks next year, but you'd want the highest pick.
Well, I don't want him because the Celtics, I think, have all the first-round picks next year.
Yeah.
So I'm not big on him, but sometimes just letting go, knowing the fact that you're not going to get as much as you would, 4 years ago. You just have to pull the trigger because I think. I mean, you look at there's constant tension between him and Jimmy Butler.
Oh, absolutely.
So is it just worth the risk to say, look, we'll give them up because, one, that's going to help with salary cap. Two, Jimmy Butler's, there's not going to be that conflict between the players. And they might not show it at practice, and they might not show it, but you could tell. You could tell just based on some of the answers during their interviews that it's not a close relationship, and maybe it's better to part one just to.
Hey, we've got a caller.
On.
We've got a caller, Corey. Hold on one second. Christopher, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you guys.
What's up?
Not much. I was thinking today, I'm getting all these updates from. I watch you guys on the Sports Inferno, but I also get updates from other apps and stuff like top recruits and things like that. National Signing Day is Wednesday. Do you think, I don't know, in my lifetime that I remember throughout the 90s and early 2000s, I don't remember a whole lot of top recruits being at any kind of McDonald's game or a 3-star coming out of the Quad Cities. Do you think that's because mainly a lot of high school teams in bigger areas are recruiting players out of here, or do you think we're just not a prime place for top recruits?
Well, probably. I mean, there's been some. I mean, look at what's his name? Who went to Stanford?
Chason Randall.
Chason Randall. I mean, Chason Randall was Mr. Basketball in Illinois. Ricky Davis was not a McDonald's, but he was a Irvin Magic or a Magic Johnson, I think, All-Star that year, which is the next game. He was a top 50. Rock Island's had quite a few good players, but I think when you start looking at it, Christopher, I think some of it is because it's the Quad Cities and you don't think too much of it. Because look at a kid like Nicholas Bear at Iowa. I mean, he could be Sixth Man of the Year in the Big Ten, and he's a walk-on. I think there's more talent here than what people think. Look at the the kid from North Scott last year. He's now up at and then the other kid, the Tyler Hall. They're both, I think, at North Dakota State, something like that, and they're both having great freshman seasons.
I didn't even think of the kid he's not in the Quad Cities, but from Clinton. I went to NIU or Northern Iowa to playing for Arizona now.
Right. Then you got Brady Ernst from Clinton, who's at Iowa State. You've got so they're out there. It also depends, Christopher, on what you do. If there's any other sports, because as you know, as doing multiple sports and things like that, basketball players have to have the summer to get recruited. People aren't going to come to Davenport or Rock Island for the most part to watch them play one game, unless it's the Iowa coach or it's somebody local. You got to get seen in the summer. But if you're playing baseball in the summer, if you are a football player and you got football camps too, it makes it a lot tougher to have that summertime or to get seen when you're playing multiple sports, whereas opposed to kids at Oak Hill Academy and that's all they do is play basketball.
Yeah.
But there's definitely talent around here.
I think.
You look at it this way. I mean, you got. It seems a lot more walk on. Like right now, I believe Joe Argo's now walking on with the Hawkeyes.
Right.
So he could turn out to be something solid. But
there's a safety, Jake Gervais. He's at Iowa now, and he's a walk on, and he from Davenport Assumption, and he's listed as the backup safety right now.
Yep.
I know. I just thought of this because I recall from when I was in high school, I played soccer for 2 or 3 years, and I met some kids that, it's not super popular, soccer is, but I've had kids that were at Quincy Notre Dame, and they were telling me that they're from Colorado and they got recruited to play for Quincy Notre Dame, or like a school up by Chicago, like they would get recruited from like a school in Chicago. The kids were from like North Carolina and Colorado and stuff. And
well, that's
when they get recruited, I was like, wow, that's kind of odd. I've watched some sports documentaries where the kids were like, yeah, I decided to go here. Well, it wasn't decided. It was just like, you know, I wanted to go to high school here because this is a prime spot for big recruits for people to look at, for coaches to look at.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt that recruiting happens. I mean, there's just no way around it. Recruiting absolutely happens at the high school level, and for the funny part is the private schools, which Quincy Notre Dame is, get such a bad rap for it. But that's why also in some in some states, they put a qualifier on private schools. So let's say you have 1,000 people at Quincy Notre Dame. Well, they put the state puts an amplifier basically on your student population, and they may put it up by 50%. So now your population is 1,500. So that moves you up into the next bracket.
But, I mean, if you figure the majority of the kids that are going to school that play sports, I mean, they don't look into saying, hey, we need to stop this at all or anything. I mean,
you know, here's the way I look at it is, you know, I'll say in particular my daughters. Excuse me. The local school for them, that they wanted to play basketball and softball, the person who's in charge of that program, it wasn't going to be a good fit for them. So instead of going to another public school, they went to a private school. Had there been another public school that had good girls sports programs at that time, they may have chosen to go there, but they chose to go this other route. So for me, there's part of me that says, you know what? People should have that ability to change their minds, but the ones who do it 2, 3, 4 times, I have a problem with that. If you're changing schools every year, every semester, you get to a school and you want to play basketball and it's just not working out for you, I don't have a problem with them going to another school. Because you know what, we all know it, and it doesn't make a difference if it's band or basketball or football or the chess club. There's politics everywhere you go. You're going to be behind a coach's kid. You're going to be behind kids whose parents give a lot of money to the boosters club, and they're going to get every chance that they can to those kids. So you know, as bad as it is to say, that's the unfortunate aspect of high school athletics compared to college athletics, where a lot of times the best 9, 11, 5, whatever sport you're playing, play.
Yeah. Well, and I think of it this way too. It's like some schools are also, they have this big investment in sports, but for a science program or an after-school program, they don't have the funds for it.
Oh yeah. You know what? But it's kind of the way I look at it is it's kind of like the football department at Iowa. They're self-sustained. There's nothing that some activities do that make up and make their program money. So to me, I don't think it's fair to say cut down on the football team or the basketball team or the baseball team when you got people coming to see them and they should be paying their own bills if they're doing things correctly. and also at the same time, you gotta the city governments have to run they got to run everything correctly. They got to work out the budgets. It's a tough one. I agree. I mean, it sucks that somebody's playing playing something, and while yet they don't have enough instruments for the band department. But the band also doesn't make money.
Yeah. Well, my girlfriend's school, she's at a she teaches a low-income school, and the kids go there, and there's a lot of athletes, and it sucks because these kids are not in a well neighborhood, and yet, I mean, a lot of things, I mean, the majority of the donations that go to the school are sports, to keep them off the streets and, things like that, but it sucks because the kids that don't, unfortunately, just don't have an interest in sports. They don't have a lot because there isn't a band at their school. There isn't this or that.
Yeah, I mean, there's that does stink. I agree. I mean, you wish there was enough money to go around for everything, including me. I wish I had enough money for me.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks for talking to me, though.
All right, thanks, Chris.
Yep, thanks. Bye.
Corey, I think we lost you there for a second. So yeah, those were interesting points that Christopher brought up as far as, you got a lot of movement going on in athletics nowadays. There's a lot of kids moving from one spot to the other, and that really is a problem with kids moving from one spot to the other, but I don't know that there's a great fix for it, because I do think that kids should be able to move from one school to another if there's an issue, but I also agree with the having to wait a certain amount of time before you can play, and I think unless it is something where their parents are moving, I think they should just be allowed the one move during their school year or during their tenure.
Yeah, I don't think hopping from school to school every year is a good idea. The problem to me with the high schools and the transferring and moving from one school to the next is you do have to allow it in this day and age when you're allowing the engineering student that is in North District and wants to take the engineering program at Davenport West. If you're allowing him to move there, it should be easy because this kid really enjoys basketball, so he wants to move to this school for basketball. But I think there has to be a limitation of, 1 year at North, the next year at West, go to Central, go back to West, and finish it out. I think that becomes a problem.
I agree. I agree 100%. And the other part, too, is, I think it's a tough one. I was going to say you should have to stay within your own school district, but I also look at, especially in an area like the Quad Cities, if you run into that situation at West, kind of like again, or let's say you run into that situation at Central, because that's your school, and we'll pick on your school, where somebody.
It's a good example, actually, because my youngest is in the West District and he's going to Central next year.
Well, but then let's say and he's going for band, right?
Right.
But let's say he gets there and he wants to be the first seat on trombone, and he gets there, and after 2 years, the trombone or the band, the person who is going to be the first seat on trombone, he feels like he's better than, but that's the head of the booster or the booster department's kid. And he's just never going to move. Well, to me, I feel like he should be able to say, you know what, it's just not working out for me here. I'd like to move to either north or west where I can show my full capabilities.
No, and I totally agree with that. But when you've moved 3 out of the 4 years,
I agree.
He's pretty much covered Davenport Community School District. If at that point you couldn't break in, then you either buckle down and concentrate working harder for your senior season, or I mean, you got to kind of face facts at that point. There's only so many. There's circumstances where, and just to be brutally honest, there's favoritism.
There's no doubt about it.
And some kids are going to feel defeated or left out, and sure, that's an instance where you want to move. But if you're feeling defeated and left out every year of high school, then it to me it starts to become maybe you're the problem. And maybe
I agree.
You're the problem is not the right thing to say, but maybe you need to change, or maybe you need to work harder to live up to the expectation that you have pictured yourself as. And
I agree. I agree 100%. I think you hit the nail right on the head, because you see so many times, and I've seen it and heard from parents where, well, my kid was with this ASA softball program, and it was the parents' kids who played all the time and played the positions. So we're coming over to your program, and then the next thing you know, they're leaving your program because of something else, and then they go to another program, and then they're gone from that program because of something else, and then they go to another program. And I'm with you. After a while, it's more like, well, what are you doing wrong? Why is it always somebody else's fault? What are you doing wrong? Yeah,
I mean, and this is what we tell our kid Nolan, who's in the band, and which is, anyways, but he likes Central. He liked it when he went there, and that's for me. My parents went to Central. My grandparents went to Davenport High. I mean, unfortunately, there's generations of Schraders that have gone to Central. So to me, it's kind of cool that one of my kids is going there. Sure. But we always told them, look, West is always open. If you find that you don't like it, go back to West. We're in West District.
Right.
You can always go back to West. But I'm not going to allow him to say, well, I can't do this at West either, so now I'm going to go to North. Or, you know what, can we check out Pleasant Valley? Can we rent an apartment over? No. So, and I think that has to be set with athletes. And I think we're past the point of no return of high school students going from one high school to the next, because when I went on these adventures of these open house type nights, orientation for these high schools, they all have something different, and they all have something unique, that positive that they have to offer. And I think, like at West, you have the engineering. Their engineering stuff is crazy. At Central, theirs is more, the liberal arts and band, and then North, they each have their own specialty. And the only way I think you can eliminate open enrollment is if everyone had that same specialty. You know what I mean?
Right.
Central has an engineering program. North has an engineering program. West has an engineering program.
I agree with you. Don't do that if you don't want kids to move.
Right.
No, I agree with you 100%.
So the district has opened itself up to that type. Which, I mean, if you're going to go that route, then the sports aspect has to follow, because you can't say, well, this band student can transfer, but how come my 6'10" forward son can't transfer over?
Exactly.
Just because he plays basketball and this kid plays band, or this kid does engineering stuff, he can transfer, but I can't. You have to allow that. But again, it does come down to okay, you're hopping schools every year.
Yeah.
There's a point where, okay, dude, it's either the parent, and most of the time it's the parent, but I'm not gonna lay it on the kid, but
I agree.
But it's good. I think it's good, and there's actually one kid, and just to talk about my school a little bit, my old school. There's a kid on the basketball team at Central, this Kelvin Miller kid. He's a junior, and he might be someone to watch out for. He might be a late bloomer.
Central's got a good. That's probably that in baseball, but their basketball team's been pretty consistent over the years of being pretty good, and I think that Central team is going to be a team next year, probably along with Muscatine, that's going to compete for the MAC title.
Yeah, because they're both young.
Yeah,
they're both young, and. But that Kelvin Miller and just just looking at his stats and some of the highlights I've seen of him, he might be pretty good. Now I'm not saying he's going to be all of a sudden this 4-star athlete that Notre Dame and Marquette and all these schools, Iowa State are going to go after. But who knows? I mean, he could be. Know. He could turn
but he has to do it in the summer.
He's one to watch out for. Yeah.
Yeah, he'll have to do it over the summer. To come out of nowhere like that, you got to do it in the summer.
Yep.
Well, and to stick on that for one more second, if anybody wants to go see a good basketball game tomorrow, it is probably probably boys. Now probably mostly girls, but PV and North battle for first place in the MAC for the girls. If PV wins, you're looking at a 3-way tie between North and West and Pleasant Valley. If North wins, they're going to kind of seal the deal for the MAC title because the teams that they play after that aren't nearly as strong. I'll put it that way.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah, I'll just put it that way. So that's going to be a good game, I think, Friday night. So.
Well, and you got Hawkeye basketball tomorrow.
You got Hawkeye basketball tomorrow. You got Hawkeye basketball on Sunday against Northwestern at home.
Yep.
So, what's your prediction for tomorrow night?
I am going Iowa. I am going to say Iowa. I'm going to say Iowa 82, Maryland 70.
I'm going to say Maryland 78, Iowa 72.
And I can see your score as well.
Yeah, I can see both of them. No, I agree. I think we talked about it the other night. It's like you think Iowa's going to win. I think Maryland's going to win, but neither of us would be shocked if the other team won.
Right. I mean,
I just hope it's a good game.
Big Ten. It's tough. It's tough to win on the road no matter what conference you're in. So,
yeah.
I mean, for the Hawkeye fans out there, if Iowa loses, it's by far not the end of the world.
No.
And Indiana showed their colors a little bit last night.
Yeah, that's what
against Wisconsin.
That's what my thought was too. Is that something that Wisconsin's just playing a lot better, or did Indiana show their true colors? And I think it's probably a little bit of both, to be quite honest. But I think that showed that Indiana, because really, Wisconsin, they beat Wisconsin by 2 at home, and then they won and then they lost at Wisconsin. Well, Wisconsin's by far the best team they've played.
Right.
So.
Right. And I think and that's part of the tough schedule that Indiana is now going to have to face, coming up. And as for Iowa, you can kind of say, if you want, this is the end of their beefy schedule.
Yes.
I mean, their real gut punch schedule. I mean,
yes.
That was a difficult schedule. And they come out, what are they, 7-0 right now?
Yep. Minimum 7-1.
So if they come out and lead the toughest conference schedule, I think, in the country at 7-1,
no doubt about it.
You're still in the driver's seat for the Big Ten title.
No,
the
I
loss,
agree.
you're still in the driver's seat. So don't
I agree.
panic. Don't panic, although I will be watching the game and I will be cussing because that's what I do when I watch that game. When I watch the Hawkeyes more than basketball, more than any sport, I cuss. Probably because every play I'm thinking they're wronged.
Yes.
So, yeah, it's not the end of the world. And then, well, you got the NBA trade deadline coming up here in a few weeks, and you got pitchers and catchers.
Yes.
Starting to report in a couple of weeks. So that's going to be some exciting times. I'm kind of interested to see what my Celtics are going to do because they have all these freaking picks, and they still have a bunch of bench players and salary cap dump players, and I really, really like our head coach. They shouldn't be as their record shouldn't be where it's at without him, in my opinion. But it will be. It'll be an interesting next few weeks.
No, I agree. So that should be about it for tonight. Now, next Monday we won't be on the air because of the caucus.
Yes, I will be. I'm going to plug it. I don't care. I will be at West High School. I am caucusing for Donald J. Trump. So I don't care. I don't care who you vote for. I don't care if you want Ted Cruz, Bernie Sanders, Hillary Clinton. Everybody should go out and caucus. Go out there if you can.
As long as you vote for somebody.
Vote. Just use it. It's the best right you have. Why waste it?
No, I agree. So, well, that should about do it tonight then.
That works for me. With Mike Ackerman, I'm Corey Schrader. This is QC Sports Inferno presenting ZRadio. I'm out.